Welcome to the WMA podcast. I'm Justin Halverson, the president of WMA, and with me is my co-host, the director of member relations for WMA, Justin Jackson.
Hello.
Today we sat down with Professor Steve Schiestel. Professor Schiestel is the current director of the Financial Planning and Wealth Management program at the Eli Broad College of Business at Michigan State University. Professor Schiestel holds the CFA designation, has an MBA from Eli Broad, and a BBA in finance from the University of Michigan. Professor Schiestel is the co-founder and CIO of Grand Capital Advisors and has over 20 years of experience working in the wealth management industry. Professor Schiestel is a fantastic lecturer. I've had the pleasure of sitting in on his classes, and I found he has a great skill for making all these high-level finance concepts interesting and engaging. We recorded this pod before the news that all the MSU classes would be online for the fall of 2020. So it's really disappointing to hear that the students who are in Professor Schiestel's classes this fall won't be able to sit there in person. But I know he's got some great ideas and some great things planned for the online version of all his classes. So if you like what he had to say in the podcast today and you're interested in learning a little bit more about finance and you're an MSU student, go check out his classes. We have the details of those in the show notes. A big thank you to Professor Schiestel for coming on the show today. We learned a lot about MSU's wealth management program, its origins, where we are today, and then also a lot about Professor Schiestel's background and why he decided to pursue a career in finance. I know I found the conversation incredibly insightful, and we really hope that you do as well. So without further ado, we bring you Professor Steve Schiestel. Conversation about that. So right off the bat, in your own words, can you tell us what financial planning and wealth management is to somebody who has maybe never heard those terms before?
Yeah, that's a great question. Sometimes the words might be used, synonymously with each other. I kind of view what is a financial plan? So a financial plan is just, in the old world, almost like a document that helps you make decisions about how you make good financial decisions about your life and things you want to accomplish. Financial planning is really just the ongoing discussion on this. It's not like a one size fits all. It's dynamic. It changes with time. So that's the planning piece of it. Wealth management is this name that's been coined probably like 20 years ago to kind of represent all of the pieces of a person's financial situation. So typically, traditionally within this industry, we often first started with investment management, how to manage your portfolio and whatnot. And then the industry then also had a lot of insurance people, so we had the risk management side. But really, when you think about wealth management, it looks first at the person to figuring out what is it that they want to accomplish. And then we look at their balance sheet, what assets do they own, what liabilities do they have, what are their cash flows, and then takes all of the investments, the insurance, their taxes, their legacy type stuff, and make it kind of a unified approach to it. So I kind of look at the terms, they can be interchangeable somewhat, but it's almost like wealth management is a summary or a package of all these different things that we do, and then planning is kind of part of that.
So do you think, is wealth management more of like what you do when you have an accumulation of assets? Like, is it like, as a young college person graduating out of college who has debt, does that person require wealth management, or is wealth management more for somebody who's had a career, has some savings, has some investments already kind of?
Yeah, I would say it would apply to everyone.
Okay.
But so I came years ago, I started to work, when I moved into this industry, 1999, I moved into what was considered the bank's trust department. So I worked for Citizens Bank in Flint, Michigan. And at that time that I started in 1999, we were considered the trust department. Old, stodgy, conservative. And we quickly, almost within 3-4 months that I was there, we went to wealth management. And everyone was like, what the heck is this? And so we originally had some people saying, well, am I wealthy enough? Am I wealthy enough to be part of wealth management? And it's kind of one of those terms. But Justin, getting back to your question, boy, even if I'm someone coming right out of school, I might have a lot of student loans I may not have an emergency fund, and I might not even know anything about starting in a 401k. That's wealth management.
Right.
And so honestly, I think if someone could coin a better descriptor of what we do, it would probably take some traction, because I think there is that person. I mean, I remember sitting down with a couple that had well over $1 million of investable assets, and they were like, I don't feel like I'm wealthy enough to be in wealth management. So it's in the eyes of the beholder, I guess.
It's so important, because I think nowadays so many people have so many misconceptions about wealth management. You know, it did have an older meaning, and a lot of people still think that. So thank you. Yeah, that's very insightful. Can you tell us a little bit why you decided to go into finance? I guess going back a little bit. So you're more than welcome. Did you start in wealth management, or did you start somewhere else? You talked about working at Citizens Bank, or how did you kind of fall into the wealth management space?
Gosh, that's a great question. I think the one thing I would say to any young person is that you can have the greatest plans early on, and rarely will a person's path from, let's say, the point of starting undergrad as an 18, 19-year-old to maybe the day you retire, you will look back, and I'm saying this as a person that's 50, so hopefully I'm still about 20 years away from retirement, but still you look back going, wow, how did I get here? Some people, their path might follow a nice, crisp, but that's pretty darn rare. So it's kind of funny, because I started off as a history and computer science major going into undergrad, and in high school, I'd never taken any business courses, but I had stumbled on, looking at this thing called the Wall Street Journal or Fortune magazine, and just didn't really even know what I was looking at. And I took an intro to economics class as a freshman in the fall of my freshman year. And I had a love for history, and the way that this macroeconomics teacher taught it, it kind of weaved history with economic thought, and I kind of fell in love with it. And then took a few classes, pivoted over. I guess I had an interest in the markets, which kind of led me to finance. And then really didn't even know, like, where there's this whole thing called corporate finance, and there's capital, there's personal finance. So it was kind of just finding the way. So it really wasn't well measured out, well planned as an 18-year-old to get here. When I graduated, I started off as a commercial banker working for a bank, which at that time was called NBD Bank. And so we were headquartered out of downtown Detroit. Through a number of mergers, it's now everyone knows it as JP Morgan Chase. So I was a commercial banker for 7 years. And I just really wanted, again, my interest in the markets, kind of led me to think, let me flip over and do asset management. So that was really my original plan, I guess, would have been doing something in asset management. Went into this trust department that became wealth management, and then ended up doing a bunch of different roles on this front. So probably not well planned out from like if I was sitting down as a 18 or 20-year-old drafting how this played out, and here I am teaching now. But, it's been fun.
That's awesome.
Cool.
So,
go ahead, Justin.
I was going to say, do you mind telling us a little bit of the trust department? Because that's a big part of our wealth management program. So do you mind telling us a little bit what it was like working within the trust department at the bank?
Yeah, so back in the day, if you think about how people had financial advice given to them, outside of the do-it-yourselfers, we really had the traditional stockbroker. Okay, for again, that's a name that's really not in our lexicon today. So it would be a commissioned salesperson trying to execute transactions. And then we had, if you were high net worth, you could probably go to an RIA, but really RIAs didn't get the traction that they have today. And then you had, let's call it old family money that would be sitting inside of bank trust departments. And so a traditional bank trust department would be staffed with kind of the lead person would have been an attorney, someone with a lot of estate planning. And so they would be very much involved in managing either like a revocable trust where someone is still alive, or oftentimes something that's an irrevocable where let's say the family patriarch has passed away, and that trust document determines how the next generations will live. And then it was kind of monitoring it that way. Then what we've seen is, because of changes in estate planning taxation and estate planning rules, a lot of that has changed. And now we very much live in a world where kind of the owners of the assets are the ones that are then hiring out their advisors. And so I think that's really why this idea, there are still some, very reputable firms out there, like Northern Trust comes into mind in Chicago. huge complex, but they've created such a brand name that they keep that trust. But I think for a lot of regional banks, they just said, you know what, the old trust department was too limiting. And it was almost like, wow, I have to have a trust to engage the trust department. So we went to wealth management, and then that's getting back to Justin Jackson's comment earlier is, well, if I don't have wealth, I can work with wealth management. But
Yeah, so could you explain what it means to be basically a financial planner or a wealth manager nowadays? Like, I feel like a lot of people don't understand. Are you an insurance salesman? Are you somebody who sits in an office and puts together financial plans? Are you looking at investment portfolios all day? Like, if somebody's 18, 19 years old, I feel like it's kind of an overwhelming industry to just look at and be like, oh yeah, that's what this person does. Who's a financial advisor.
No doubt. And there's so many ways, but I kind of call it like so many dimensions to look at the industry. One dimension would be, what would be first of all, one dimension would be what kind of a firm am I going to go work for? And so do I work for like a registered investment advisor? Do I work for one of the wirehouse financial advisors? Do I work for a broker dealer? And it's almost, those are terms that kind of define how they're regulated. I think the dimension that probably makes more sense, especially if I'm looking, would be, am I going to be an analyst, or am I going to be, let's call it, a business development person? Or do I have to build my quote unquote my own book? So the roles, the responsibilities are going to be different in that type of a firm than it would be if I was being hired on to be a junior part of the team and learn the industry. Versus here's your desk, here's your phone, go build a book. And again, there's dimensions. And so I think oftentimes what I try to do in class anyways is to explain those dimensions so that students can best fit what kind of works for them, or at least so that they're as informed as possible.
So I think that's a good place to talk about the CFP program and, why do we learn the CFP? Also, you're a CFA, if you could also touch down what the CFA is. Can you kind of break down why we do the CFP program and the wealth management program, all that stuff?
Yeah. So let's first talk about credentials. So, obviously I always kind of, I got a little bit of pushback on this, but I'll still defend it. Like if you look in, let's call it broad finance, or let's call it financial services finance, from a credential standpoint, the CPA, the certified public accountants who are going to come out of the accounting department. That's still a very, very reputable, certification that a person can have. And really a CPA can migrate in a lot of different ways. But again, generally business-oriented accounting. And then you've got a law degree. So oftentimes, a JD can allow a person to pivot in a whole bunch of different directions. Then there's the CFA, CFP. So the CFA, the Chartered Financial Analyst, and then the CFP, Certified Financial Planner. The way I always best describe it is, if I'm sitting down and there's a couple or there's a person that says, hey, I have all these financial questions. The CFP person is the one who would sit down and engage in that conversation. Tell me about you. Tell me about your dreams. Do you want to retire and when? Do you want to send your kids to college? Do you want to start a business? All the things that make us people. And so draft a plan. How do I get there? It might be investment heavy. It might be insurance heavy. It might be, estate planning heavy. But then once, let's say we're engaged, we write a plan and they say, I'm going to hire you to be my advisor. Oftentimes that advisor then will manage the assets along with it, whether it's in a, brokerage account or however it's being managed, your investment assets. Then once it comes into the firm as the advisor, I got to do something with these, right? And so let's say if I need to hire a manager, so whether it's a mutual fund manager or a hedge, whoever the manager is, I'm going to turn that around, and that becomes almost a B2B or business to business conversation. And that CFA sits as the asset manager. Mm-hmm. So they're the ones that are actually making the, do I buy, Coke or do I buy Pepsi? Do I buy Facebook? Do I buy Twitter? And they're making those asset decisions. So it really comes down to CFA it's not even fair to say it's more quantitative, but it's more, you're in the market, you're making those asset decisions, where the planner, really the planner has to have a lot more dimensions to them. Yeah. They have to be interpersonal. They really want to like people. Yeah, exactly. Counselors are great. You have to have that ability to, I often tell I think back of people I've seen in my career, some of the best CFAs, you really wouldn't want to put them in front of, quote unquote, normal people. Just because they're so like, they can build the greatest spreadsheets, they can tear apart a financial statement with the best of them. They can make great investment decisions, but boy, you get them on the phone and they're not a fun conversation. You just know hey, what path do I want to follow? But for us, this would really be the Financial Planning Wealth Management Program, which we are registered with the CFP board, which means that if you take all the 6 classes that are labeled inside of this program, you can sit for the exam upon graduation. That is really, I want to take that role of sitting down and helping people kind of reach their goals, reach their destination on however that is defined.
Yeah, so you're almost the middleman. That's like maybe another way. You're the middleman between the CFA and the client who wants to buy those assets and put them in their portfolio, right? Yeah. And
one way to really differentiate it. So years ago, I worked for a senior manager named Mike Robinson, and so he kind of recrafted the business model we were operating, and he always gave the example that, boy, in today's world, you have to be really good with that interpersonal conversation, with all those skills, plus be really good as far as implementing those into a plan. But this is not the role anymore of, do I buy Coke versus Pepsi? It used to be back in the world, they did both. And boy, you just even see this at the firm level. There's not many firms anymore, and there are still some. The one thing I always say with finance, you never say the word never, because there's always exceptions to every rule. But I would say that a large number of firms today are, you know what, I'm working with those clients, and then I'm going to take those investment dollars and I'm going to kind of farm it out to someone else.
Makes a lot of sense. So you touched a little bit about the MSU CFP program, which Justin and I are both a part of. We're both going to be seniors next year. Can you tell us a little bit about the origins of that? I know, like, I was doing a little bit of research, and I see there's less than 200 schools in the United States that have a program that's like this. We were ranked in the top 50 on the list I found, so I was happy to see that.
Awesome. Go green.
Yeah, go white. But can you tell us what kind of made you want to start that? Like, what were the origins of that? Where did you see that need?
That's a great question. So 2011 is when I first started teaching at MSU. I was teaching at night corporate finance class. In 2014, the circumstances were right, the opportunity was right, so I came full time to MSU. And almost from the day I started, they said, "Hey, we got this side project that a large RIA in the state of Michigan is very interested in seeing us build a CFP registered program. But how do we do it?" It was kind of almost literally saying, here's the want, how do we accomplish it? And it took a while to get done as we kind of maneuvered through, I guess, different ideas and different options to finally get the thing, kind of see it to fruition. But then starting in the fall of 2018, for those that graduated 2019, we actually got the program up and running. And really a lot of it was just getting the endorsement from the CFP board and it's kind of interesting. So in order to get the CFP, I guess, for the easiest way of describing how do I become a CFP charter holder or earn the designation is to hit the 4 E's, which is the ethics, which means, hey, I'm going to be ethical. I'm going to kind of, treat my clients in the best interest, that, just all the ethical component of it. You have to earn an education component, and that's where we come into place with our program. You have to pass the exam, and then you need to have sufficient experience. And so often it's like 3 years of experience, and then you can then throw the credentials behind your name, or place. That's probably a better word of saying. Properly place the designation behind your name. So we come in on the education piece, and really what the CFP says is, in order to satisfy this, you have to have a minimum of 6 classes, 18 credits, covering 72 learning objectives. And one of the classes have to be a capstone class. How you design it from there is up to you. So often where we were struggling at first was, how do we fit this into an undergrad, primarily a business student? How do we fit these extra classes in there around all the other requirements that you guys have to work around? So we had to get a little creative to get there. And I think that the mix we have now works pretty well. And so far, so good. I mean, I'm last year's class, all the students were placed with all different types of firms, which is great to see. And I think this year it looks like just about everyone has been placed as well. And even in the course of the pandemic, seeing that play out has been very satisfying.
I've seen so much opportunity. Joining the program a couple of years ago, it's amazing. I get emails even during the pandemic. Yeah, we've got the Financial Planning Association of Michigan. They're emailing us opportunities all the time. It's been great. So I guess, could you, I don't know if you touched on it, but could you tell us why would this be a good career for a Spartan? If there's a finance student who's kind of trying to decide what he wants to do, why would they consider doing this program at MSU?
Or a non-finance student, because we actually had a
there you
couple
go.
marketing students even switch over and join the program.
No, that's a great question. So, and we're actually in the midst of just finishing up let's call it the approval process to launch a master's/certificate program. So this might even be appealing to a non-business student, whether someone's in the social science college or someone's in the arts and letters college. To answer your question, why would someone want to do this? Well, the first thing are other opportunities. And the data can be a little bit different, depending on where how you slice and dice it. But what I have seen is that I think there's like 300,000 advisors in the US. And out of those advisors, the numbers would say that about anywhere from a quarter to a third should be retiring in the next 10 years. Okay, based on where they are in their life cycle and all that, that's about with retirement age. So there's almost this barbell in the industry where there's some young folks and there's, it's really a quite mature industry. And so there's all of this opportunity. So there was an alum who came in a couple of years ago who was the director of placement for a large broker dealer. And he said, I kind of break it down like this. One, we know that our industry is quite old. Okay, we need lots of young, fresh talent to come in to replace those. Second thing is that people are living longer. And as a result of that, they have greater and greater needs to make sure that I'm planning appropriately for it. And the markets are really choppy, right? And there's lots of things going on where people maybe historically would have done it themselves. And they get to a certain point where they're like, geez, I really probably want to make sure that I'm handling this just right. So all those things are leaving great opportunities for students. And really oftentimes I would just say, boy, you know what? Within finance, we've got the traditional corporate finance jobs where you could go work for a company and kind of work within the finance/accounting kind of part of the firm. We've got capital markets opportunities where someone might do investment banking or sales and trading. And then we've got these financial services opportunities where I look at these much more as like you have a book of clients that you're trying to take care of. And so if you like the day where you're going to, let's say pre-pandemic, getting on the phone, driving out or having clients come in to meet you, and it's a lot of different types of engagement, and then go do some quantitative work, it's a great mixture to kind of fit both of those minds. So yeah, it's really, so I think that there's some great opportunity. A lot of firms are pretty excited for opportunities that they see for Spartans that are interested in really any student, regardless of where you're kind of coming from on that front.
Yeah, it's incredible how much opportunity I've seen. I can't believe it. Like, I think pretty much everybody I know fellow in the program has an opportunity this summer. I know, yeah, Derek just started his the other day online. Yeah. And even so for him, it's unique because it's such a small firm. So it's cool to see these small firms where they're only hiring one intern. They're able to still bring people on fully online. So it's
the one thing that, the one thing I find kind of interesting is that the industry is very competitive. Okay, business is business and there's always competition, but I am kind of amazed at how the industry will still find ways to work together. And the prime example is that there was a firm that was struggling on how do we put together a good internship program to bring someone on full time. And they had some stumbles. And so then I put this owner in contact with who's a partner at an RIA just to share best practices. And didn't really have to do that, but just like, hey, if there's a way that we can help someone kind of get their firm maybe working a little bit better, and it gave an opportunity for another, for a Spartan student. And if it works well this summer, it could be a good full-time opportunity. So pretty fun and interesting to see that.
It is. We've been throwing on this term. Do you mind defining it for us? RIA. What's an RIA?
Oh, yeah.
Somebody hasn't heard that before.
No, that's a great question. Yeah. So really within the space, you would be, for lack of a better word, you'd be either registered as a registered rep of a broker dealer, which means you might work for a warehouse firm or like a farm from like LPL or Raymond James. Okay. So you'd go through all the licensing requirements and fall under that scope. And so it's almost a regulatory oversight. The other part of it would be working in a registered investment advisor capacity. That's what the RIA stands for. And you'd still have to be registered, but then who the regulator is that those advisors would report to is just a different channel. And they often have maybe different standards of conduct, but working with the clients in the end is going to look the same.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time.
Dog barking.
Yeah, let's hold on here.
Is that your dog, Steven?
It is.
What kind of dog is it?
Oh, it's a schnoodle, which is part schnauzer, part poodle. And he's generally a quiet dog unless either A, there's a package that's been delivered, or if the UPS driver comes by, or the mailman, or if someone's walking their dog.
Yeah, I have a Pomeranian, and she was nice for about 13 years, and then she started turning a little senile, and
Okay.
she's been pretty mean and yippy past couple of
Yeah.
years. So, do you have any advice for incoming freshmen or any different major that is interested in pursuing financial planning, wealth management, how they can get involved at State? What are the steps that they should be taking besides joining Wealth Management Association, obviously?
Yeah, so I would say as a freshman, your best idea is to join a club, right? And so this upcoming year will be year 3 of the Wealth Management Association. Just both Justins here, have been, very helpful of taking the club to the next level and figuring out what works. But yeah, really from a freshman, if you can kind of come in, I think it's kind of cool where the club will mix both having speakers come in. There's nothing like hearing from the people who are actually doing it, and then just different learning things that you guys are doing. And so if someone sits through a club and they're like, wow, this seems pretty cool, and maybe this might steer you into a broad type of education. So really up to this point, we've had primarily finance majors, but we have, and Justin Jackson's one who kind of started off in the marketing realm. We had a student this year that actually graduated as a marketing major, but went through all the classes. And marketing is a really good, I think the backgrounds of what you learn in marketing, along with this, the content that we learn in the wealth management program kind of dovetails super close as well. But yeah, I think that's it. Because oftentimes, you're almost as a sophomore where you're starting to really take some of the business classes, and then it works really effective, I think, to take the intro to wealth management, which is our Finance 370 class, as a fall junior year. And that'll give a good opportunity to secure an internship. And then really a lot of the classes get picked up as a senior. But really it's almost being introduced to it early on, seeing is it a good fit. And then with our new master's program, it could be, we're really looking at it as, I guess our target audience would be maybe someone who's just graduated out of one of the colleges, and some, whether it's a Michigan State students or maybe someone even locally that would maybe want to add a 5th year on, takes whatever their undergrad was in and use that as a foundation for these additional classes and being an advisor that way.
So what should a student that's interested in doing the financial planning wealth management program do? Should they reach out to you? Should they go on to the finance website?
There's probably a lot of different ways. One, this summer I'm going to be working on enhancing our website. So I'm working with a couple of students this summer just to help out, build out, and make the website more robust. That'd be step one. Step two would be joining Wealth Management Association, the student group, participating and being involved with that. And then just anytime, hey, I'm available 24 hours, 7 days a week, anytime to reach out and have a conversation with a student. But actually, what I've kind of found, it's word of mouth. I mean, it's amazing in the little bit of time that we've been in existence where a student will tell another student, and it comes, through students hanging out, having conversations, and, kind of building it that way as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just scrolling through the finance website because I was a marketing major, and I was like, I really want to be a planner, but I know I'm not probably a corporate finance guy necessarily. And then I saw the program. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know this was a thing. And then I reached out to you, and that was kind of my path. And it seems like there's been a lot of different paths where people have just word of mouth or just stumbled on it on accident,
Yeah, so we're trying to come up with some ways of being a little bit more proactive. I mean, there's been some outreaches in different venues on it. Part of it is that for about the first 2 years, a lot of our classes were labeled under this Finance 491. It's kind of a catch-all category for new classes. As the classes are getting through the approval process and they get their own unique number and name, it helps as students are scrolling through the available class options, saying, oh, wow, Introduction to Wealth Management, what's that? And that kind of leads us into, probably would have to, so I had this one student, so last fall, he would have been a senior, sat in Intro to Wealth, and maybe about a month in, pulled me aside saying, I finally found what I want to do. I'm a finance major, I didn't know, but unfortunately it's too late now to pick up the other 2 classes I need as in the fall. So I allowed him to take the capstone class, and he's going to come back for a term to backfill. So one of my goals now is in the fall for this year is to early on really talk about the profession, talk about the careers, so that if anyone is finding their destination fall of senior year, we can get them in the other classes so that they don't have to retrace the steps. But yeah, some people are coming super early on. They know right away. Others, in fact, I've talked to freshmen and sophomores, others it's seniors. So, whatever we can do to help spread the word is just going to be beneficial for everyone.
I know we're definitely doing that at the Wealth Management Association. Yeah, to speak from personal experience, I didn't know about the program until I got into campus, and then I got involved in clubs. I joined the Marketing Association, the Finance Association, and then the Wealth Management Club the first year they were on campus. So freshmen, that's awesome. Yeah, joining a club, I think that really helps a lot. So
get out. I mean, I got to give a shout out. So Elizabeth Damani, who was a student a couple of years ago, and this was pre-program. In the spring, she had said, do you mind if we started a student group? And so from there, and I know, Justin H., you were in that first group of students sitting in on it, but now I can see each year the student group is taking things that work, taking things that maybe didn't work, positioning it to just make the group as successful as possible. So I'm really excited for what we have planned for this year.
Yeah, thank you. I am too. I think the plan is to have Elizabeth on too. So she's going to be another conversation Justin and I have. We want to hear all about why she wanted to start the club. So that'd be great. Yeah, that's going to be great.
Yeah. So. No, because it was interesting. A couple of weeks ago, I had a Zoom call with the grads from the 2019 class into the 2020 class. And just because of timing, most of the people who joined were the 2019. There was a couple students who just graduated that also joined. But just seeing the camaraderie, where people are at, and that's one of the things one of my things this summer I really want to think about is how do we make sure that we keep the alum kind of connected in, and to help out, sometimes even as an informal mentor, like, hey, there's a person in a firm, can I go talk to them? And really the one thing I always find, Spartans of wherever they're at throughout the world, it is amazing how there's always a helping hand that people are willing to provide. So it's an awesome community to be part of.
Definitely is. Yeah, I'm very fortunate to be a part of it. So, yeah, Professor Schiestel, thank you so much today.
Hey,
Yeah.
this is awesome. I look forward to future conversations and being available on campus. Hopefully, if we are lucky and things come to pass, that there can be more face-to-face connection. But if not, we have the technology to substitute that for it.
It is, yeah. I know we're probably not going to have this come out for a few months. So as of now, for anybody listening, we're still up in the air. We don't know where we're at in the fall. So we will see. Yeah,
we don't know where we're going to be. Yeah. So awesome.
Well, thanks again for all your time.
Yes.
If you are interested in learning more about MSU's financial planning program or in connecting with Professor Schiestel further, please see the show notes for his contact information and additional information regarding the program. If you are a current MSU student who's looking to become involved in the Wealth Management Association, please visit msuwma.com and fill out our membership form. With that, you'll get access to more podcasts, our weekly newsletter, the Spartan Journal, and access to our virtual meeting links, which happen every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. via Microsoft Teams. Ladies and gentlemen.